I found the secret WWF travel schedule for SummerSlam 92, and it's full of behind-the-scenes info.
Boom, missing in action. He disappeared. He was gone for like a week. He missed the flight. Boarding, please get on.
We both failed the piss test. Oh, you're just going, what did I do?
Such a big deal to Brett and Davey.
I knew maybe more than anybody else.
He never said this, but I can say
Vince was mad, real mad.
It was just such a bad screw-up.
On August the 29th, 1992, the WWF held SummerSlam at Wembley Stadium. But this wasn't just any pay-per-view. It was the first time that Vince McMahon dared to take an event of that scale outside the United States. British Bulldog's gonna win whether he wants to or not. Really sorry for the accent. What I didn't expect to find was the actual official travel pack for all the wrestlers. Does no one care about kayfabe anymore? What the actual...
This summer, London plays host to the toughest, the most flamboyant sports event there is. The World Wrestling Federation's SummerSlam is staged at Wembley Stadium in August, the first time it's been held outside America.
By the early 90s, stateside interest in wrestling was well and truly cooling off. Hulkamania had peaked, and the steroid scandal was causing all sorts of domestic reputational issues. Over the pond, however, it was a different story. A lucrative TV deal with B-Sky B meant that WWF was more accessible to the British public than ever before. So when SummerSlam tickets dropped, they sold out in record time.
People in the World Wrestling Federation, they were hoping to get 50,000 tickets sold, and then when they put the tickets on sale, boom, they went in less than 4 days. I said it would sell out within a week, and they said no, they would sell 50,000 tickets in about a month. And when it sold out, I got a call and said they sold out. I said, I told you it would.
Single greatest outdoor adventure of a lifetime.
Well, he never said this, but I can say it about Davey. He was England's most famous athlete at that time. He was a superstar over there. They had sold over 80,000 tickets in less than 11 hours, and that broke the British Telecom phone record for selling more tickets faster than any other event.
From Millwall to Maidenhead and Birmingham to Bristol, fans up and down the country were excited to catch a glimpse of their favourite WWF stars.
There was a certain level of fame here in the United States, but I remember going over there, and it just was way beyond that.
Like, oh, everybody's on the bus looking at each other like, oh my gosh, this is unbelievable.
It was rock star status for these superstars. Bret Hart mentions it a bunch of times, that it was like Beatlemania to them.
There were so many fans on the street all night chanting, Hitman, Hitman. And I could hear it all night. They cheered till at least 4 in the morning, and then they would cheer Bulldog's name. And I could sort of tell by that, it's like, this is going to be fantastic tomorrow. I knew maybe more than anybody else.
The main event of SummerSlam saw Bret the Hitman Hart defend his Intercontinental title against hometown hero, the British Bulldog. Also on the card was the Ultimate Warrior versus the Macho Man Randy Savage for the World Heavyweight title. Now, full disclaimer, I hold this show pretty close to my heart. It was the first event I ever attended outside of a village hall, and all these years later, it's the one event that I've found myself constantly drawn back to. So like a Sherlock Holmes of the squared circle, or a weirdo beardo with too much time on his hands, I set out to find as much about the event as I could. And that's when I stumbled on this document. Not a match card or a promo, but the travel schedule for the entire WWF roster. It contains names of wrestlers, of the production crew, of the hotel staff, flight departures, flight arrivals, who came when, who went where did they stay, where did they go.
Some of my favorite keepsakes are the tour books they would give us. I mean, they were all hardcover, really fancy.
Now, I'd be lying if I told you that screenshots and scans of the document hadn't surfaced online, but this is the first time I've held a copy in my own hands and gone through every word myself. So it's time to show you all the stuff that's in there that may have been misread, misled, or, like the Nature Boy pitching to Vince for a spot on the card, just flat out ignored. So let's break it down. On Thursday, August the 27th, the wrestlers and crew flew into London. This day was officially marked as a day off to rest and recover. Except it wasn't.
I remember flying into England. It was raining, I think, when we got there. And it was like, oh my God, what if it rains? It'll ruin everything. That was the big fear. Everyone was crossing their fingers and biting their lip and praying that it didn't rain. I didn't want to wrestle in the rain.
After arriving at the airport, the wrestlers had to make their own travel arrangements to reach the hotel. And for some members of the crew, this was easier said than done.
I called the hotel, finally got changed, hey, what's the best way to get to your hotel? She's like, just take the tube, love. And I'm like, the tube? I'm like, she kept saying that. And I'm like, wasn't there a train or something I could take around here or somewhere? Or, and she's like, no, just take the tube. I'm like, ma'am, what do you mean, the tube like the Jetsons and stuff?
The document reveals that all the wrestlers and production crew were staying at the Kensington Holiday Inn, which is now a DoubleTree by Hilton. 4.3 star rating on TripAdvisor, you're welcome. Having checked in at reception, wrestlers were asked to report to the dedicated green room just off the lobby. Now, don't let the name fool you, it probably wasn't even green. It was basically a WWF help desk where one poor soul, a guy named Bill, was in charge of managing the chaos. Throughout their stay, wrestlers entered the green room to get cash advances, sort out their itineraries, or just confirm they hadn't gone missing. But here's the twist. They weren't allowed to leave the hotel without telling staff where they were going.
Where the hell are you going?
After a day of rehearsals on Friday, August the 28th, it was showtime. Shane McMahon, just 22 years old at the time, was personally in charge of walking Bret Hart, British Bulldog and the Bushwhackers to a banquet hall for promo appearances. As the document reveals, the WWF team had even built a mini wrestling ring in the ballroom that would play host to fans. It was from this location that Mean Gene Okerlund would introduce the stars for their autograph sessions.
Well, we've been there the whole day Saturday, like the whole day. We were at the building. We were all worried it was going to rain.
Earlier on today, apparently, a woman rang the BBC and said she heard that there was a hurricane on the way. Well, if you're watching, don't worry, there isn't.
More on the top secret travel document schedule itinerary thingy later. But first, let's talk about one of the most legendary stories of the entire SummerSlam event.
Boom. Missing in action. He disappeared. He was gone for like a week. He missed the flight. I mean, we're all catching the flight, and we're standing at the jetway waiting, last boarding, please get on. And they're looking down the concourse. We all got on the flight and left home.
Two members of the WWF roster who were riding high at Wembley were the Legion of Doom. But the party didn't last. Within days of the event wrapping up, Hawk had disappeared. No warning, no explanation. Now, depending on who you ask, Hawk either disappeared to Amsterdam on a week-long bender with the Berserker, or left Wembley Stadium on the motorcycle he rode down to the ring and fell in with a group of Hell's Angels. Literally not making this up.
After the show, Hawk disappeared into England. Nobody heard from him. Animal was on, Ellering was, oh my God, what happened? Nobody knows.
People have speculated for years about what really happened. Well, luckily for us, there's one man who might have the answer. And to find it, we've got to go straight to the horse's mouth. Or in this case, the Norse's mouth.
Well, we both failed the piss test before we went to England. And instead of going home like everybody else, me and Hawk, we ended up with the Hell's Angels at the Holiday Inn in Kensington, downtown London. And he said, you want to go? I said, yeah, man, let's go. Let's tear it up. And you get stranded for 3 days in the Hell's Angels chapter house. Man, you're just going, what did I do? It's like there's bunks upstairs in this old house. In Luton, England, it was just such a bad screw up.
Whatever the true story, no one could find him. And the WWF couldn't exactly send out a search party to track down a face-painted wrestler in leather spikes who may or may not be on the back of a Harley headed for a field rave.
I felt sorry for Animal because, here's a guy that's trying to do it right, and he's got a partner who basically is a nice guy, but he doesn't have both his oars in the water. Vince was he was hot. He was mad, real mad.
SummerSlam itself was a roaring success. Over 80,000 fans attended, £1 million in merchandise was sold, and of course that iconic final match where the Bulldog won the Intercontinental title from his real-life brother-in-law, Bret Hart.
It was such a big deal to Bret and Davey, and they wanted a perfect match. I remember Davey had this horrible staph infection that he got in the beginning of July, and it turned out that it was almost like an ignition of the flesh-eating disease. And it was a staph infection, and it started with a bang. He got to the show, and it was about 2 months, around 2 months since he had actually wrestled or done anything active. And he was really concerned that his timing was going to be off. He would blow up in the ring and lose his breath. And on top of that, the butterflies of, am I going to do all right?
The beauty of the best wrestling that you can that you can create or imagine. It is wrestling that when you take this wrestler and you take this wrestler and you put them together, and you can actually, before the bell rings, when you see them standing in the ring together, and you go, I don't know who's going to win. And as an artist, you have this ability to paint this elaborate movie that can be the best movie of all time. And in a lot of ways, that was one of my greatest movies. We had a oohing and awing right from the very beginning.
It was beautiful. It was a masterpiece.
I think it was the greatest match in the history of wrestling, as far as I'm concerned.
I think it's the best show Vince has ever done in the World Wrestling Federation. I think it beats all the WrestleManias. The electricity of the crowd, 83,000 people, outdoors on a beautiful day in England. You couldn't beat it.
It was always one of those incredible, great moments that it wasn't just for me and Davey, but it was the whole family. I know that everyone in the family was really proud of Davey, and they're proud of me, and I think they're proud of where we'd come from.
Many wrestlers in the locker room that night remember SummerSlam 92 as a career highlight, but not everyone walked away smiling, especially after seeing their paychecks.
We was in our dressing areas. So Steve Lombardi came back to me and told me, I know how much you made at SummerSlam. I said, how much? He said, you made $13,000. And I know I didn't tell him. And I asked him, how did he know? And he said, I just saw it in Pat's briefcase. So Pat went there and he left his briefcase open. He said, come on, I'll show you, but we have to make it quick. And I saw it. He showed it to me. I made $13,000. And then had what an Undertaker made, $500,000. That's what I worked with. He got $500,000, I got $13,000. He was worth every dime of it. But what about me?
But what happened after the show? According to the travel schedule, Vince, Linda, Shane, Stephanie all flew home the next morning. But the likes of Ric Flair, Kamala and Rick the Model Martel were all in London for another day. So where did they go? Well, the answer to that question is tucked away on the very last page of the travel itinerary. Over to you, Hacksaw Jim Duggan.
We were out partying with Michael Douglas and Grace Jones one night at Stringfellows. That was the hot club in downtown London, and we'd be head of the line. People would pull up. They're like red carpet, cut the line off, bring in the wrestlers.
Now, for those of you who don't know, Stringfellows is an infamous London nightclub, and probably the only venue outrageous enough to handle 40 half-drunk wrestlers in spandex and sunglasses. The remainder of the WWF crew flew home on Monday the 31st of August, with the notable exception of Rowdy Roddy Piper and Hacksaw Jim Duggan, who returned to the US 3 days after everyone else. And of course, Hawk. If you want to fall down more classic wrestling rabbit holes, like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.